I'm Brian Heidelberger, a partner with the law firm of Winston & Strawn in Chicago, and here today with another mini advertising law lesson. Today's law lesson: Pinterest has new contest guidelines. But first, this is the spot that I usually come up with a funny joke, but I have nothing to say here, so we're going to move on to the next slide, which is Facebook recently changed its contest guidelines such that it made it more user-friendly for brands to use its pages to run contests and sweepstakes. Doing a 180 of a sort, Pinterest has come out with a bunch of don'ts right now that might make its pages a little less interesting for brands to run contests and sweepstakes on its pages. Now, why the change? Well, they are trying to cut down on spam, and while Pinterest says we love contests, we don't like people pinning things which are irrelevant and spamming to our system. So they've come up with a bunch of don'ts, things you can't do anymore because they've been incorporated into Pinterest terms of service. The first and most important is you can no longer require people to pin from a selection like a website or a list of pins. So if you used to run contests that said go to our website and pin any product that you like and you'll be entered, that's no longer permitted by Pinterest. Now, what can you do? Well, you can use a theme such as go ahead and pin any type of refrigerator from anywhere on the internet, but the problem with that is if you're, of course, a refrigerator manufacturer, you might get competitive pins on there of products other than your own. So you're going to have to be creative here and work in the system. And come on, marketers, I'm sure you can come up with a good idea on how to get around this, but for the time being, you are going to be somewhat limited in how you use Pinterest for contests. Now, also, people used to ask people to pin the contest rules in order to show that they had seen and agreed to the contest rules. Now, this feels irrelevant to Pinterest. They don't want a bunch of contest rules pinned to their pages. As much as I don't like to admit it, I know those documents are really not that interesting for people to look at, and so they're saying you can't do that anymore. What can you also not do? Well, in the sweepstakes, the random drawing realm, they don't want you to run a sweepstakes where every time somebody pins, they get an entry, or where every time somebody likes a board, they get an entry. So it's no longer that you can say, kind of follow our pin board and you will be entered, or like one of our pins and you'll be entered, or each time you pin you will be entered. Those are no longer permissible for random drawings. They also want to cut down on other types of spam behavior, such as trying to get people to comment on pins, a sort of end around on these rules. Also, they don't want to have kind of a voting mechanism where you vote via pinning. And finally, they don't want you to require a minimum number of pins. So obviously that means anyone can now be entered in a Pinterest contest or sweepstakes by just merely doing one pin, as opposed to saying you aren't entered until you post 5 or 10 pins. Now, of course, that's again because that would cause spam to the system and maybe some irrelevant type pins. So that's a shorty for today. I hope you enjoyed this. You can follow me on Twitter for more interesting tidbits at Brian Heidelberger, or for more mini law lessons, go to youtube.com/Brian Heidelberger. And until next time, let's be careful out there.